Hello again everyone from Tokyo, Japan, and welcome back to Japan Vintage Camera. I'm coming to you from indoors today because outside at the park and around the neighborhood they're filming a TV drama, one which is supposed to be airing pretty shortly here in Japan. I'm not really too sure about what it is about, other than it's supposed to be about the hero is supposed to be a resident here in the Roppongi area of Tokyo and run a business here, and it has to deal with his life in this area. I'm not especially interested. I don't really like Japanese television dramas very much. To me, they seem a little bit weird, and I just don't understand them, I guess. I much prefer the commercial advertisements. I think those are really fun and interesting, and it's kind of the opposite of the way I am in America, where I kind of like to watch the TV programs and dread the commercials. Here it's kind of the other way around. I like the commercials, but I dread the TV programs. So that's one of the reasons I'm shooting from indoors today. The second reason is that the mosquitoes are really thick outside, and I don't want to get chewed or eaten up by the mosquitoes today, so I'll let the actors and the film crews and all that stuff deal with the mosquitoes. I'll sit up here and make a video indoors. As you can see, sitting in front of me, I have a box. And this is a box which contains an old camera from the late 1950s, and this particular camera is the Mamiya Metra 35 with the f1.9 48mm lens. So in the mid to late 1950s, Mamiya was producing some really high quality cameras, some really good stuff. These cameras featured excellent optics, they featured an excellent focusing and range-finding systems, and a lot of other features, which kind of set them apart from other cameras of the day. And of course, Mamiya became a very well-known maker of professional quality cameras, mainly in the medium formats, and the kind of a studio standard for a lot of shooters around the world, or studio photographers. They produced a large number of 35mm rangefinder and SLR cameras. The rangefinder and medium format cameras were the most popular. Their SLR cameras never really caught on so much. That isn't to say that they were bad, it's just in such a large market, competitive market between Canon, Nikon, Pentax, Minolta, Olympus, and so on, it was kind of hard for them to find their niche there. But they did have a good niche in the rangefinder market, and they were probably the dominant producer of cameras in the medium format market, from all the way up into the 1980s and even a little bit into the 1990s. So it's kind of hard to find one of these old cameras from the 1950s in the original box, and sometimes these boxes are quite expensive. In particular cameras which are really rare, the boxes are much more rare, and often in some cases the boxes can sell for several $100s. Unfortunately, that's not the case with this one. This box is probably worth $1 at the most if a collector were interested in it. Normally these boxes are kind of linked to the particular camera which they contain. They usually have the serial number and lens number, and this one's no different. So just buying the box and putting the camera in it doesn't make it an original boxed camera. And a lot of people who collect the more high-end cameras have found the numbers on the box tampered to make them appear to match the camera. And a camera like this, which isn't particularly expensive, it doesn't really make any difference. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what's inside the box. So I'll go ahead and pull off the top here. Consider the age of this box. I mean, this box was made back when Eisenhower was president of the United States. I'm not old enough to remember Eisenhower, thankfully. No offense to you people who do. But it's remarkable that it's held up so long, especially in Japan, where the climate here is not especially kind to things like paper. And on the inside I see a sticker on the top, and it is a checklist saying what you should find in the camera. Number 1, camera, obviously. Number 2, something which looks like the kanji quick open or quick operating case, and including a strap band. And next is instructions, quick guide, and warranty card. So we have a list of these things which should be in the box. So let's go ahead and see what's still in the box after all these years. And on the top we have the original strap, leather strap, which when you consider the age of this, it's still in remarkable shape, not dry rotted, still nice and soft. We have the camera itself, still located in, or contained, I should say located, contained in its original case. In front of that, we have this little plastic slip on the bottom, and in this plastic slip we have this odd little plastic and metal thing. This is a diffuser for the light meter, and this is what you were supposed to use on the light meter when you were shooting on bright sunny days. Light meters in those days had kind of a limited range, and they had for normal use, for bright light use, and for dark use. They required different accessories or settings in order to use them. These old diffuser covers are almost never found, so it's quite lucky to find this one still in the box. Next we have not just one box or one book of instructions, we have two books of instructions. Let's see, go ahead and take a look inside here, and everything here is pretty well laid out. First we have a diagram showing what each and every part is, and then the basics: how to load the film, how to hold the camera, wonderful styles from the late 1950s. How to use the rangefinder. We have the different shutter speed and aperture combinations and things like using EV numbers. We have kind of the system here on how to use the light meter system. And a couple of other things, other directions here, different photographic effects. Let me see what we have here. Beautiful mountain scene, and yeah, pretty interesting, showing even photographic tips on how to take better photos. Looks like a photo of the Marunouchi district in Tokyo, buildings which no longer exist today, unfortunately. And other accessories and things, stuff that would fit to the camera. It's pretty interesting that it still has the instructions to it. And of course here we have the card that they mentioned, which was to be included, and this is basically just a list of the features which this camera has, kind of a marketing kind of thing. And also you can buy certain accessories. They are listed here, things like filters, hoods, extra cases and stuff like that. So pretty much all the stuff which pretty much everything. It's nice to find the old camera with the original box and the original literature on the inside. So let's take a break for a moment. I'm going to have a little bit of Japan's national drink here, a little bit of bottled green tea. When I come back, we'll continue with a close look at the camera itself. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at the camera. So first we have this quick action case, or what we call in English an ever-ready case, or what they used to call it, or some people call it the never-ready case. So let's go ahead and open it up and see what we've got inside. It pops open like so. The convenient features, you can pop off the other two snaps there and remove the top half of the case. Nice and convenient. You can either carry it with this strap here, kind of like as a hand strap, or use the neck strap on it, and that just kind of buckles in. You just put it in between, you unbuckle it, and then just slide it in between. Let's go ahead and take the rest of the case off, because it's easier to look at the camera when it's not inside the case. Leather case is in really good condition. Yeah, no rotting, no deterioration of the leather. Really amazing. And the camera itself looks to even be in better condition than the leather case. It's actually very nice. There are no dents or damage, no scratches that I can see. The metal finish looks really nice. It's kind of difficult. I might have mentioned earlier here that the climate in Japan can be a little bit difficult on cameras. We definitely have 4 seasons here. We have very cold and dry winters with very hot and humid summers, and on metal, plastic, or wood, metal, leather, and wood objects tend to suffer quite a lot here in the climate, but this camera's held up quite well. These cameras from the 1950s can be a little bit difficult because in those days, and it's still somewhat a little bit today, the yen is rather weak compared to other currencies, and so it makes the importation of materials to make cameras and things like that rather expensive. So importing chrome and zinc and nickel and the other things which you need to plate metals, those are a little bit expensive. And in those days, Japan was trying to make things which were inexpensive to compete on the world market. And so sometimes they had to try to skimp a little bit in certain things, especially the more expensive materials. And chrome was often one of those things which they tried to save money on. And often these cameras were very thinly plated. And you can see that in a lot of cameras, particularly cameras like Olympus cameras or the old Fujifilm cameras from the 50s and 60s. You can sometimes see green through the chrome, where the chrome is so thin that oxidation is getting to the brass underneath and causing it to discolor. Other times it doesn't take much effort to rub the chrome off. You can do it with a little bit of polish. I got an old Fuji camera which looked quite nice. I thought, well, this will clean up really nicely. And I took some polish and I put it on a rag and I started polishing it, and I polished the chrome right off it with almost no effort. So it turned what was not such a bad looking camera into a really bad looking camera. I suppose I could have made it look nice and polished to brass when without too much more work. But this camera, the plating is still wonderful on it and looks beautiful. The leatherette is really nice. Even the nameplate here on the front looks immaculate. The lens cap, these are often the things which seem to suffer the most damage. People always drop them and step on them. This one has never been dropped or stepped on from the looks of it. The only thing which I can see obviously wrong with it is that the light meter doesn't work. And of course I don't expect the light meters to work on these old cameras. If they do, it's really a blessing. If they work accurately, it's kind of a godsend. That's one of the things which is interesting about these cameras. They had a version of this camera called the Crown, which was basically the same camera but without the light meter. Pretty much everything else is identical on it. But the Auto Metra was a more sophisticated camera with the light meter and also a different kind of system for the viewfinder and rangefinder. And that makes it, when you find one in good condition, it tends to have a pretty good price, and it's very popular with collectors. Let's go ahead and take a look at the features, controls, and functions of this camera, starting from the top here. On the left side where I usually start, we have the film rewind knob, and I love the fit and finish in the lines of the camera. Everything looks really nice. I love well machined metal. Like one summer in high school I worked in a machine shop, and I was always fascinated by the kind of metal parts which these old machines could make. And this place where I worked, they made parts for jet engines and things like that. Really cool stuff. And but something as simple as like a block of machined and polished steel would be fascinating to me. And of course, something like this with much more complex shapes is even more interesting. Nice and smooth. I like the roller tip here. Makes it much easier to wind. Over here we have a shoe for mounting the flash gun. And this camera, of course, doesn't have a hot shoe. There's a PC sync socket located on the lens body for mounting a flash. On the front here we have this odd little kind of button thing, and what this is for adding the amplifier for the light meter. So if you're shooting indoors in a low light situation, you would attach the amp to the light meter, and then you would use a different set of settings here. We have a couple of settings here. This one and this one for normal and low light, and so this allows you to use the light meter with or without the amplifier. We have the light meter here itself, and this light meter works just like a normal pocket light meter. Very simple and easy to use. I made a video a while back on a Seaconic light meter and how to use them. The instructions for that light meter would pretty much apply to this one here. You simply program the film speed by turning this dial on the top until the film speed number matches what you have loaded in the camera. And then you watch for the needle to move, and you simply turn this here to where it matches the needle, and it gives you a light value. And then you can use the light mount value to set the aperture and shutter speed. Next to that we have the shutter release button, which accepts a standard cable release. And then here we have the film winding and shutter charging lever. Nice sound this has. And it's very smooth. This camera feels almost like new. It can't have been used. It could only have had a couple of rolls of film through it at the most. It doesn't have any marks on it. No marks from ever having a flash mounted on it. No thumb wear, which often occurs on the body from, you sweat a little bit, and the thin chrome on these old cameras, it tends to get into the chrome, and usually it will leave some kind of mark here. This camera doesn't have that. Inside here we have the film counter, which is a very simple mechanical counter, very reliable and very easy to understand and use. Going to the back of the camera here we have the viewfinder eyepiece. What is wonderful about this camera is, like a lot of the other 50s cameras, rather than using a simple system of lenses and mirrors, this camera used solid prisms, very similar to the higher quality, say Leica and Nikon rangefinder cameras. And these offer, I guess, better optical clarity and more precise focusing, a better rangefinder patch when focusing. On the other hand, when they go bad, they're extremely difficult to repair, and usually you have to replace them. And then sometimes it takes you have to hunt a long way to find a replacement part for one of these. On the positive side, these aren't an especially expensive camera, so finding the parts isn't so bad. On the back here, we have an access screw here, and this access screw, I believe, it's likely going to be for the light meter, because this camera features a removable front cover, which you normally remove to access the adjustments for the rangefinder. A lot of the old cameras which had uncoupled light meters had adjustment for the light meter, so if the light meter was off a little bit, you could adjust it and get it back into it to be reasonably accurate. Of course, it could still be something else, but more than likely that's what it's going to be. Take a quick look on the inside, and yeah, often they'll have a access port for the adjustment on the inside. All right, moving to the bottom here, we have a film loaded indicator, which is a really wonderful feature. That way you know that the camera has film in it without accidentally exposing it. There's a little button here, and perhaps if I'm pushing on here, I don't know if you can see that changing there or not. Changing from orange to white. When it's orange, it means there's film in the camera. When it's white, it means there's no film in the camera. More than one time, I often buy cameras or have cameras sent to me to be fixed, and I find that they still have film loaded them. It's really nice to have a feature like this to know that it has film in it. We also have a release button over on this side to release the winding mechanism so you can rewind the film. And we have a tripod socket. This is a standard 1/4" one located on this side here. And this one looks like it may be removable, possibly from the inside, so you can use the bigger 3/8" style. Moving to the front of the camera, we have the window here. This is kind of a this one here would be looking through the slit here for bright lights. Yeah, depending on the situation, in most cases you simply pop it open like so and the light meter works properly. It's really kind of confusing the way they have this setting with the slit in the front, the clip-on diffuser, and the open setup, and using the amplifier device. Personally, I think it's a lot easier just to use a light meter app or a handheld light meter and not mess with these, because I find it kind of troublesome to go through the different settings. This little window here is for the rangefinder focusing system, and of course here we have the viewfinder window. One thing about this camera, these two windows are kind of located close together, and this kind of decreases the amount of angle on the rangefinder, and it can make it a little bit, you have to be a little more, I guess, careful when you are focusing, because when you have a wider space between, say the rangefinder mirror and the prism, it allows for more precise focus. But on the other hand, the quality optics of this particular camera, it still allows you to focus quite accurately, even though these two are spaced quite close together. Next thing we have, we'll go ahead and move on to the lens here, and we have a focusing tab on the bottom, and it also has a knurled ring, so you can operate it either with the tab or the ring. We have a focusing scale, which is arranged in meters rather than feet. In front of that, we have a depth of field scale, which lets you know how much depth of field you have at any given aperture. In front of that, we have the shutter speed selector ring, and the shutter speed ring is the shutter speeds are kind of linked to the light value ring, and to adjust those or to adjust for a light value, you simply, for example, you're shooting outdoors, say 400 speed film on a sunny day, and it gives you a light value of 13. So you would select, say, 1/250th of a second, and you would turn the aperture ring until it lines up with 13. So we have, say, 1/250th of a second at f5.6, and pretty easy to set. The good thing about like the coupled system is that it allows you to turn the aperture and shutter so you maintain the same EV value even as you are turning the two different rings. That was really sophisticated in those days, a very interesting but simple mechanical computer. Unfortunately, those systems, those old mechanical computers, the lubrication dries up or small parts on the inside break. They're very difficult to work on and very difficult to clean. Some of them have planetary gears and things like that, which are a real nightmare. This particular version doesn't have that. It's much easier to use and has, of course, less things to go wrong. I didn't mention before, or I might have mentioned that there was more than one variation of this camera. This is the original Auto Metra. The Auto Metra 2 features an EV interlock system, which just allows the feature I described to allow you to maintain the EV number while changing the combination of aperture and shutter speeds, and also being much easier to break. Taking off the lens cap here, wow, nice and beautiful and shiny, no corrosion on the inside. That's a really unusual thing. Of course, here we have the lens, the 48mm f1.9 lens, which Mamiya used in a number of the different rangefinder cameras. And this is a phenomenal lens, an excellent performer, a really wonderful, great design. All of Mamiya's lenses are really good, and some of them are quite expensive. My favorite, I think, is the 100mm f2.8 for their press cameras. I think they made similar cameras or lenses for some of the other cameras. Kind of interesting thing about this one, sometimes you can unscrew this lens here. This one is on really tight. It's knurled around here, which should allow you. Of course, this camera's never been apart, but often you can remove the front lens element simply by unscrewing it, and then that allows you to clean haze or stuff on the inside of the lens elements, and also it allows you to clean a stuck shutter or something like that. So that's one thing I like about the Mamiya design. Some of the Minolta designs and other cameras, they used the kind of the lens design of the old leaf shutter like medium and large format cameras, which were more user serviceable. Really wonderful lens. I'm surprised this camera didn't come with a filter or whatever, but this thing has obviously been shot almost not at all. And of course, since it hasn't been shot, no one has had to clean or rub the lens, so there are no marks at all on this lens, which is quite a rare thing. Go ahead and take a look on the inside of the back here, and I can see a little bit of rub marks here from film having been in the camera, so it was obviously used at least once or twice. The lens I can see through the back, nice and clear, no haze or anything like that. No fungus or anything, which really loves to grow on the inside of cameras, not just on the inside of lenses, but sometimes inside the body in the back you'll find bits of mold and fungus. This camera was kept in a nice, I guess, cool, clean, and dry place. We have this little button here, and this is what is depressed with to actuate the film load indicator. Around the bottom here we say made in Japan, rather obvious. Film loading in the camera is quite easy. You start by pushing up the knob here, dropping in your film canister, pushing this back down to hold it in place so it doesn't pop back out. And then taking your film lead and feeding it into the slot here. I like the little details here, like this the yellow markers on the side to make it easier to see where to put the film. It's really wonderful when a company can think of the minor little details like that when they are designing something. So you simply fit it in there and simply wind and fire the camera until the film is pulled all the way across the window here, and the holes on the top of the bottom of the film are being pulled by the teeth on the take-up spool, and then simply close the camera. Cool thing about this camera is it resets automatically. Some of the old rangefinder cameras of this year do not have automatic resets for the film counter. This is one of the higher end cameras of its era, so yeah, self resetting lever. This is a really interesting camera. Who would want to shoot one of these cameras? Anyone who's interested in rangefinder photography and who wants a camera with a really excellent lens, a wonderful viewfinder. The light meter is kind of a iffy thing. I don't see this as a benefit, or say it's not a good thing or it's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing because they don't often work and they almost never work accurately. It's not a bad thing because, in my case, I generally avoid using these kind of light meters. It's much easier nowadays to just use an app on your smartphone. There are lots of apps which you can find for free, and you just simply program whatever film speed into the app that you would have, which matches the film in the camera, and the app will give you the appropriate shutter and aperture combinations, really quick and easy to use. If you're a little bit more hardcore, you can use a handheld light meter, and I find that these to be really wonderful. And that's usually what I use because I can get a little bit more, I guess, accurate results with a handheld meter. And these meters are really cheap nowadays. These things, they were quite expensive studio meters back in the day, but now they're very reasonable, and you can get one for a really good price. And also the light meters like this one here would be adjustable, but the handheld light meters are much more reliable than little ones which they put in these old cameras, for better or worse. So yeah, a really good camera. It's really smooth to operate. It's well balanced. It has an excellent lens. Pretty much, this is a really good camera, and this is one of the ones which put Mamiya kind of in the mainstream market in those days. When this camera was being produced, Mamiya's medium format cameras they'd already stopped producing their TLR cameras, and they were just introducing their press series of cameras, these really kind of hideous looking rangefinder cameras. These eventually grew into like the Universal and Super 23, which actually became quite popular. But it was the success of these smaller 35mm cameras, especially the rangefinder cameras, which opened up the market for Mamiya and got them the retail spaces in shops around Japan and other places around the world. But anyway, there's not much more I can say about this. I think I need another drink of tea here in a moment. I'll be listing this camera for sale shortly in my online store. Keep in mind, everything on this camera works. Everything is minty except for the light meter. If you're interested in it, please visit one of my stores. I should have this ready in a couple of days to go. My stores have been kind of, my shelves are a little bare right now, mainly because demand has been really strong. It's kind of hard to keep up. Every time I add a dozen or more cameras in a couple of days, they're all gone. So thanks for all you guys who are buying cameras from me. I'm going to try to add several more tomorrow and Friday. So if you'd like to check them out, please come back and visit my stores. I'll post links to my stores in the description below the video. If you'd like to hear more about or see more about old cameras, please subscribe. And I'm always trying to get more people interested in vintage cameras and film photography. And if you'd like to help, just click the like button. That helps a lot. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you tune in again soon.